All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started here. So first off, thank you very much for attending today. This is our asset inspection session. So if you're here for that, you're in the right place. If not, it'd be a fascinating thing to learn about. So I'm Jason Tillman, Director of Product Marketing over here at Skydio. So really excited to be here with you today, as well as our panelists that you're going to be meeting. So we have some experts here that are going to share some of their real life experiences with asset inspection. So really excited for that one. But before we get started, I just kind of want to run through just a few short slides because I know you guys want to really kind of hear what the panelists have to say, but we want to kind of set the stage here. And the first one is that when we take a look at the challenges that are facing more kind of manual inspection processes that many of you may already be facing out there already. But what it is that we really want to take a look at the real challenges facing some of these. And so the first one is that when you're tasked with inspecting large, complex structures, and it could be buildings, it could be bridges, or it could be pretty much anything that happens to be out there, you're not just dealing with a routine checkup on this one. You're actually sending people into potentially dangerous situations. It could be small crevices you need to send them in. It could be like climbing high. It could be anything that's all the way down to putting them inside traffic or inside other kind of hazards. Additionally, the challenges really don't just slow down things, they also drive up costs because every additional hour spent on actually doing some of these inspections means that additional time and money is actually spent where it could be used elsewhere. And then beyond that, just the immediate risk that we're actually just talking about, there's also a level of consistency that you're actually not getting there as well. And so while relying on human inspectors is great, it's been something that's been done for decades and such, is that even they can actually have bad days. Maybe it could be a day that they're just a little bit off. And so you really want to get that consistency there. That can really lead to gap inside data, which could actually overall kind of really impact what the level of data you're actually getting. And so that could lead to much more infrequent times you're actually going out and doing these inspections, which could overall, the long term, actually really impact the health of the asset that you're actually looking for. So what we want to do is we want to kind of introduce you here today to a understanding of what this could look like if you start adopting drones. And I know that we're at a drone conference, surprise, surprise, we're talking about that today, but we see this as, we call this a maturity model. And this is when you're moving up from the far left-hand side all the way to the far right-hand side. The far left-hand side is where many of us are here today, and this is manual inspections, and we just went through some of the challenges that are associated with those. But then we start adopting more and more of the drone technology out there, and that's when you start moving over to the left-hand side. So I'll move to the next one. That's the pilots with drones. That's where you have individuals who are out there. They may not be engineers, they may not be experts out there, but what they are, they're pilots with drones. It could be a DSP that you're using, but they're going out there, flying up the drone, capturing the aerial data you're actually looking for, and then the experts actually receive it and actually synthesize it and actually draw conclusions. The next one is you have skilled frontline staff with drones, and that's where you actually have folks who are perhaps engineers or folks who are out there, linemen, for example, who understand what's actually they're looking at and actually can make determinations on the spot and can react much faster to that. Then you even move one more over, and that's the second to the far right-hand one, and that's the range of skilled staff assisted by docked drones. And so you could have the skilled experts at a remote facility and using remote operations in order to fly these drones. So they don't have to go out inside a substation somewhere or a bridge way out in the middle of nowhere. They can actually do those inspections from the comfort of a facility elsewhere. But then if you look on the very far right-hand side is that you look at automated data analysis. And this is where you can actually have the drones have pre-programmed flights that are out there. It captures the data. And then you harness the power of AI and some of the partner solutions that you saw out here a little bit earlier yesterday. And that's where you can actually leverage those to actually take a look at that wealth of information and data capture. It synthesizes it and then it bubbles it up to you. Because if you're having tens of thousands of photos or videos that you need to take a look at, doing it yourself is incredibly time consuming. And after you start looking at it for a period of time, you can start glazing over it, maybe miss something. But by using some of these more advanced solutions out there, you can actually go and have them bubble up those instances that might be something of concern. And then the skilled staff does take a look at that and make a determination from there and allows that level of scale that's really unprecedented. But when we see it as the use of drones within this environment, we have really the stages that this goes along. From a Skydio perspective is you initiate. That means is you have an idea of a inspection you need to do. So of course you get the work orders actually come in, but then from there you have to plan it, and you can actually do this remotely or through a controller, actually get that scheduled. Moves into capture, and this is of course the critical phase out there and why are you using drones in the first place. The drones go out there and actually conduct this mission, gets the high quality imagery and video this happens to be out there. It gets synthesized, and again, that's where partners really play a major role. And then it moves into delivering those reports and those findings over to whoever the stakeholders that you're actually looking for. So again, what we want to really talk about today is how it really aligns to all these and how drones can actually really make a difference out there. And so with that, I'll ask the panelists to come on up here. And again, we can talk about this theoretically as much as we want, but I think that actually having some of this real world examples of what these folks are actually seeing will really make a lot of sense. So to go ahead and get started, do we have an extra mic? Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and Mike, we'll start with you if you want to introduce yourself and provide a little context.
Hello, I'm Mike Spangler from Idaho Power Company. I'm the UAS program manager for Idaho Power. I've worked there for a little over 38 years, and I've been in charge of the UAS program now for about 6.5 years. And we may have about 30 pilots, 27 pilots to be exact, and we use primarily Skydio, very little DJI. Those are for non-critical assets, and we have about 24,000 square mile service territory in eastern Oregon and all across central and southern Idaho, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Josh Sexton. I'm with Stantec out of Virginia. I'm the global UAS manager and the reality capture manager. We oversee about 170 pilots. We don't have any professional pilots, but we have subject matter experts that use drones as a tool in their toolkit. And we're operating across North America, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK currently.
And I'm Michael Marshall. I've been with Stantec for 12 years. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. We're responsible mainly for bridge inspection, tunnel inspection, all sorts of different asset inspections on the infrastructure. And then we're using drones to help us with that inspection and give us better data for our results.
Should have a mic here. I'm Joe Anke, Director of Systems Engineering at Skydio. I've been here for 6 years working on pretty much all of our products, including cameras, and on X10, getting into a lot of the technology architecture and the attachments as well.
All right, well, perfect. Well, thank you very much for our panelists for coming up here today. So the first question we have to get these things opened is, can you each share what kind of assets that you're actually inspecting, and then how do you go about actually conducting those?
Yeah, so at Idaho Power, we're a heavy hydro-based utility, and so we have a lot of hydro power plants that we inspect, a lot of flumes, raceways, dam safety inspections that we do, a lot of lines, transmission, distribution lines. We do a lot of river engineering work, surveys, stream, river bank erosion, that type of thing, do a lot of mapping. And traditionally, a lot of this stuff that we did, the inspection, was really just people in four-wheel drives, 4x4s. They were four-wheelers on foot, and it's just a really labor-intensive process. And so same thing with all of our dam safety. You're putting people in very dangerous situations. The terrain is hazardous, so anything we could do to get people out of those scenarios, that's where drones really have played a big part.
Excellent. Thank you.
For Stantec, we're an A&E firm, so we run the gamut. We do survey and mapping specifically throughout the globe, but we also do a lot of asset inspection. We do nature-based solutions, environmental services. So you're looking at everything from overhead structures. Maybe you're looking at mining loadout areas, shipping, rail, transportation, bridges, dams. We're creating 2D orthos, 3D ortho mosaics, 3D models every day. And that's how we're using drones.
Yeah, so I'm mainly on the bridge side. So we're doing a bridge inspection once every 2 years as mandated by the FHWA. And we do everything from manual inspections. It's a team of two to something with a snooper truck or a bucket truck, rope access underwater, basically anything we need to get onto the bridge. And now we're introducing drones as well. So again, using all these types of manual assets to inspect both tunnels and bridges.
Great. This is a good one for me to be at the end of the line on. I think the answer is a little bit of all the above for Skydio Engineering. We have to meet all of our customers' use cases. I put up a couple pictures, you could actually go to the next one, of a few things that I'm really excited about and things that X10 is doing really well at. So for transmission, distribution, and poles, These can be really difficult to get the depth of field across long spans, getting focus correct, getting your whole image and all of the detail that you need, sometimes not being able to get the exactly as close as you want to be able to get to. And X10's doing a great job at this now. For thermal radiometric solar using map capture, our new thermal camera in X10 is doing a great job, has really high thermal sensitivity. In this photo, you can actually see some cell level defects at almost 400 feet, which is well beyond most people's specs. And it just gives you the ability to get more per capture when you're doing these types of inspections. Last year, doubling down here on bridge inspection, especially using 3D scan, these can be really tough. When you are getting under a bridge, maybe don't have GPS, lighting conditions can be difficult. You can have mixed lighting situations where there's bright background, maybe the sun up there, and using all the power of the cameras and HDR features to pull out all the features you need when we're doing these inspections.
Great. And so one of the big things that we see is change management. And so when you actually go through and change from more traditional methods of inspection over to the use of drones, like what sorts of pushback did you get within your organizations when you wanted to start using drones for these kinds of inspections?
Yeah, so initially with our group, if I take the distribution transmission patrol group, they've been doing the same thing the same way for so long. And some of these guys, I kind of joke around that you could give them a vessel that would travel at the speed of light, but they're going to still pedal a bicycle. They just are so used to doing things the same way. And then when we started out, we had a lot of pain points really with the first S2 and the iPad, all the stuff to set it up. They really didn't want to use it because it took longer to set it up than it did, and the range wasn't very good. So then I had a lot of pushback. And so big change when we went to S2 Plus Enterprise and X2s. So it's just kind of a lot of getting the group used to using it and kind of forcing it on them a little bit. And eventually, they've come around and they see the benefits of it. So it's pretty easy now.
Excellent.
I'm going to talk about kind of the corporate pushback that we may have. Just the risk associated with it. It's a new technology. When you're flying drones, we have to have regionally certified pilots wherever we're operating. In this room, we're probably all from North America, but here it's the FAA 107 or Transport Canada. And getting folks trained and having your corporate oversight, legal counsel, everyone on board that you're accepting the risk to use drones. And I'll let Michael talk about the client side.
And yeah, from the bridge inspection side, we're still need to have those manual inspections. Our FHWA mandate is to have at least 2 people on site typically, and to have that person, have that engineer or have that team leader conducting that inspection. So when we introduced drones, when we saw the slide, I guess, of the different phases of drone inspection, we're not technically allowed to go to that remote inspection yet in the bridge world, but we're finding ways to push ourselves that way and to keep advancing this technology and using it in creative ways.
And on the engineering side of this, we take these pushback and boundaries as a challenge to give you the technology that gives you the right answers for those challenges. So that comes down to autonomy, no matter where you are on the spectrum of manual capture to fully dock-based autonomous capture. You need to be able to trust the platform to be able to do all the obstacle avoidance or complete the autonomous capture on its own. Auto modes, getting the right exposure, focus on every capture, so you're not having to worry in the field about getting your settings right or adjusting them for the environment on that day. And also just the overall image quality, getting our color right, sharpness, denoise, all perfect. So every time you take a capture, you're getting the details that you need for that asset.
And when you're going through and you do this transition, there's always like things that surprise you along the way. Is there anything that surprised you in the transition over to drones? Because of course it's fairly big having someone actually maybe walk the line and actually look to see everything there, going into the bridge manually, switching over to drones. Like what was the most surprising thing for you?
I'd say probably the most impressive thing was just the data that we're getting from them, the real-time intelligence that helps us make better decisions in the field. People can see that, it's immediate. Also just the rate that we were able to adopt them within our different organizations. So we have river engineering folks, we have corp comm folks, a lot of different groups using them. But it's just really that immediate feedback, real time, high definition photos that you can look at, review. I think that's been probably the biggest.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to echo everything that Mike said. Having that actionable visual intelligence, was the first light bulb moment, but also empowering our staff, giving them a tool that kept them out of buckets, off ropes, that improved their quality of life. We're talking a lot about safety. Safety is important to all of us. And being able to allow people to work in the field longer. With drones, we're able to take people in harsh environments and extend their work life exponentially because their level of effort has decreased so much. They're no longer out in the hot sun walking miles each day. A lot of times they can deploy a drone and collect even better data than they were before. So that's one of the biggest points to me is just empowering our staff and improving their ability to collect data and their quality of life.
Yeah, and for me, and before we get to the video, for us, we're coming from an age of paper and pictures, essentially, when we do bridge inspection. So my deliverable to the client is a written report with, anywhere between 10 to 30 pictures. But to take that to the next level,
Sorry.
one more, maybe.
It might have been back
What's it back?
a few. Two more?
No, it was the video.
Oh, sorry, it's a video. I'm not sure where that
Yeah,
was.
it might be further out.
It might be near the end.
It's kind of frozen up.
Yeah, well, you fix that up. So it's the power of going to like a 3D model approach and being able to take your client to the site and then put the defects essentially right in front of their eyes and not just there you go, not just on paper or one single picture, but
What's this?
one more.
It's probably after that one as well. Not this one.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, it's to take the client into their bridge essentially. So some of these sites are remote sites. They can be difficult to get to, and to bring them into that environment and show them where their maintenance needs are, show them where their hotspots are, is all more powerful than just reading it on a piece of paper or looking at 20 photos. So I think this is the biggest surprise and biggest transformation of our work.
Biggest surprise for me always is no matter how many new features, how much new technology and autonomy we pack in, that like the amount of importance there is on just nailing the basics. And if you can't get the basics down right, then the product's really not usable. So often this leads us to focus a lot on our user interface, bringing out camera settings that you might need to get to if you get into an environment that's tricky, optimizing wireless and just making things easy to set up and use all the time.
And I guess the next question here is for Joe in particular is from that engineering perspective, like what software advancements have been critical for these inspection use cases?
Yeah, a few things. I queued up 3 photos. That was the first one that was next in line before we went back. So we'll be back quite a bit. But yeah, a bunch of new technology went into X10. One more back, and that's the right one.
Okay.
So we completely revamped the autonomy architecture, autonomy cameras, the image signal processors, and all of the color cameras. So this first photo is showing our image signal processor's ability to process 64 megapixel photos and allow us to do multi-module transitional zooms. So this gives you ability to get far away from your assets and still get the detail that you need, or get in really close and get just sort of an unprecedented level of detail down to like 0.3 millimeters of GSD. Beyond that, we knew we were going to go to autofocus modules. So here what you're seeing is like the conventional way of doing autofocus based on contrast isn't performant enough for a lot of capture if you're trying to do it efficiently. It fails in low light, and it can be slow, and we'll have like these hunting effects. So we went to a phase pixel-based multi-window approach. And what this allows us to do is in real time sort of score our image, focus and sharpness across the field. So then we can instantly snap to the best focus after we evaluate the actual ROI of our subject, or where we think like the thing is that we want to capture. This gives you the ability to be moving while keeping perfect focus and not hunting around, as well as in manual modes, not have to deal with tapping and getting into manual modes. And even in low light, this should work pretty well. Lastly, the thermal camera, we completely revamped the architecture and moved all of the processing off the module and onto our image signal processor. This gives us the ability to do radiometric thermal processing and gets us access to the latest AGC algorithms. You're going to see a huge boost in performance on thermal imaging. Here you're sort of seeing delamination on a bridge early in the morning, something that you just can't see with color cameras. This also gives us the ability to do use case-based tuning, and we'll build out profiles on X10. Today you'll see recon profile and inspect profile, so you can pick the right tuning profile for the job that you're doing. And then lastly, since everything's on our ISP, we can continue to upgrade the algorithms and build out more tuning profiles and release those quarter over quarter as software releases.
You know, I know you've just actually run through some of the things that we've done for development of the X10 in particular for these inspections, but I'd love to hear from the other panelists. What about Skydio drones in particular have really kind of stood out in terms of things that have been very helpful for you with these inspections?
I guess really one of the biggest features for me is I do a lot of thermal inspections. So having a really good radiometric thermal camera now, thank you. 64512, it's a game changer for us because it saves a lot of time. I can get pixels on the target without having to walk all the way to the asset. I can also maneuver it around and get it where I need to get into position to reduce my reflectivity. So that's just a huge thing for me. And then also just the obstacle avoidance, which everybody knows about, just makes it a lot easier, safer to fly in the wire environment. And I think those are really the features that stand out for me and impact me the most.
So corporately for me, looking at it as a program manager, the Skydio platform is really safe to operate, and that's what we've always talked about, collision avoidance. I'm going to let Michael talk about night sense a little bit. We've got a video to queue up there. But one of the use cases that I use for Skydio a lot, and it's through all the Skydio lines, is the scout mode. We do hydrostatic pressure testing over water, having the ability of the drone to track the controller and be in front of a boat while you're transiting 15, 20 miles an hour over a large body of water to do hydrostatic pressure testing is phenomenal. And we do documentation of construction sites the same way. And that's a fairly novel use case. It's low-hanging fruit, it's video, but it takes the pilot load off. You can actually focus on the controller, see what you're doing, and collect the data you need. And then if you do have a area, you've got the triangulation, so you can report back and you can live stream that feed. So it's very helpful, and I actually use scout mode quite a bit.
Might have you see if you can pull up the second video for me.
That one's going to be after the last one.
Yeah. Okay. But while he's pulling that up,
down a few more.
Yeah, keep while he's pulling that up, for us, this again, obstacle avoidance. What most drone pilots try to avoid is sites that I'm trying to inspect. So the obstacle avoidance is something that is really important to us, and then also the night sense that we've introduced to some of our projects. We inevitably get into tunnels and culverts similar to this. This is done completely at night, and then now being able to produce a model for that asset with zero lighting, only produced by the drone, is a huge game changer for us. Because you can imagine now we can, again, take our clients into this atmosphere, and one that we would only do with maybe 10 pictures or so.
I can add to that a little bit. If you go back to my first video, sort of summarizing all of that together, you'll see, to set this up a little bit, in this video, you'll see the screen go black. And it looks like the cameras are failing, but that's actually us turning the gimbal light off. And then it's going to turn back on. So you'll see with the light on, you're getting pretty good detail, completely dark environment, autofocus converges as soon as the light comes back on. We're flying with the non-visible night sense here in a GPS denied environment. So completely pitch black and still able to get really, really nice detail in like a garage or indoor type environment with no light.
Great. And one of the things I've been hearing, at least previously earlier on, was the impact of drones on safety and efficiency. Like, what have you seen from your perspective in terms of how the technology has helped on those fronts?
Yeah, it's just, there's so many hazardous conditions that you put your personnel in to do these traditional inspections that it is just really, the use of a drone has really enabled us to get away from some of those situations when you're inspecting pen stocks. Even transmission towers. There's just a lot of areas where you can now take that person out of that dangerous situation But we have a lot of other things that happen with them too. You know, we avoid a lot of negative touch points with customers on large irrigated fields when we need to get to our assets. So there's a lot of impacts that the drone have that are positive for our operations. But primarily the safety aspect of not putting somebody in a dangerous situation, and really that's a game changer. So you know, we're just increasing the use of our drones more, and I think we'll see more adoption as time goes on. But I'd say that's really probably the key points there is it gets our people out of a dangerous situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just echo that. You know, before we would put folks on conveyors in a mining environment. Maybe it's very caustic and a lot of that catwalk's really degraded. Now we can do a drone, if nothing else, with a first pass. But with the Skydio drone specifically in GPS denied environments, you know, if we have a condition that may be immediately dangerous to life and health, we can actually fly that drone into a building now and take a first pass. And maybe we can see, you know, what kind of materials we have in that building. We can read labels. We can put the drone at a minimum in an environment before we put a human there. And that's critical to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, and to echo that with safety, you know, the most critical part of a deck and where asset management begins is the deck of the bridge. And that's typically the hardest to inspect. You're trying to do it from a shoulder area, typically during live traffic. We don't like to shut bridges down. We like to keep the public moving. But now to add a drone to that situation, we can pull somebody off of that bridge deck, pull them out of that harm area, and also get a bird's eye view of that deck and actually get more information from the drone itself. So efficiency and safety both combined in one.
Awesome. I think you guys all kind of nailed it, but yeah, we're thinking about autonomy, making it work flawlessly all the time, and then beyond that, this optionality to get further away and get your detail or get close and get more detail kind of covers most customer use cases we're finding.
And so when you take a look at the future of asset inspections, you know, again, kind of putting the crystal ball to find out where it's going to be, where do you see the future of that evolving, particularly when you look at like drone technology?
Well, I think we've seen it, you know, yesterday with the new dock. I think really that's the future for a lot of our work in my industry, is being able to just autonomously launch from a remote location anytime you want to inspect. And I really think that autonomous remote operations is the future and where everything's headed. So for us, I know we're really looking at that. We don't have any docks at this point, but we're really looking at that hard in substations, power plants, and we'd like to try to incorporate that in our PSPS process for our wildfire mitigation. So I really think that's the direction we're going.
And very much just like going back to that maturity model as well. It's like some agencies, organizations may be at the manual, and that's where they're at right now. There's no like final place you need to go. It really depends on what your outcome is. So yeah, very much like what are your needs and how do you actually go through there and where along that model are you?
Oh, where are we in the model?
No, I'm just saying like it just really depends on what your situation is. So.
Yeah, and you know, and too, the thing that I want to bring up about the docks, there's companies out here that have really been forward with that and have invested a lot of time and resources to it, but it's really going to help us guys that are kind of following along because they're really setting processes and standards that make it a lot easier for us to integrate. So
For us, we're looking at, you know, cadence capture, and we're moving from static deliverables to virtual twins and ultimately digital twins that are connected with IoT sensors. So setting up data acquisition standards, how we're going to control this for the next decade so that it's repeatable, and then the level of detail that we need. If we're doing machine learning analytics, you know, we're striving for 1 millimeter GSD. So we have to decide this is how we're going to capture everything moving forward so our analytics will actually work. But ultimately for us at Stantec, one of our strategic initiatives is to go from static deliverables, those paper deliverables that Michael was talking about, to a virtual twin, to a digital twin that has integrated sensors. So we can, you know, tell our story better, understand asset management better, start performing predictive analytics and change detection, and that's ultimately where we want to go.
Yeah, and I'm going to go off of that. And the other part of it is we really can't get away from manual inspection in some sort of sense with bridge inspection, but we can start with a baseline model, and that's where I want to see it go. Is to start your inspection with a model, maybe driven with AI, and that inspector now is just a quality control agent out on the site, finding the things that maybe the drone or the model couldn't find, but getting all those check boxes ahead of time. And the other place I'd like to see it go with remote ops is we have a lot of natural disasters, bridge impacts, and things like that. Having some of those remote ops available to us to see if the bridge is in critical condition before we can get there, because many times it's a plane flight, it's a 4-hour drive, it's a long ways out. But if we have a remote op that can get there within minutes to see how the bridge is behaving, that would be all the more powerful for the clients.
Awesome. I'll set up one more video, and I think just pretty much adding on to what everyone just said here, the culmination of all this technology bringing together dock and remote ops, X10, high quality cameras, RTK, PPK attachment, cloud integrations, photogrammetry tools, basically gets you towards this ability to start getting real-time digital twins. And we're just going to keep chipping away at that, and that's kind of how we see the future.
Perfect. So just want to open it up for questions from those inside the audience here. Anything that you would like to ask any of our panelists? Absolutely.
Sure. This question is for the Michael, the Stantec Bridge Inspection guy. Thank you very much. So, question for Michael, Stantec Bridge Inspection. I'm Sean, California Department Transportation Bridge Inspection. We saw some really cool 3D models of structures there, tunnels and bridges and all that stuff. Is that part of your normal workflow for your clients, or is that a special occasion thing?
I wouldn't say it's a special occasion. It is starting to integrate into our normal workflow. As you know, inspecting maybe 5 to 10 bridges in a day, that's not economical or efficient. But there are bridges that we find that can benefit from this type of modeling or AI. So I wouldn't say it's completely taking over. Just for everyone's information, the state of Colorado I live in, over 8,000, 9,000 bridges that we have to inspect once every 2 years. And I know probably even more in California here. So to do a model of every single bridge in your entire inventory, it's just not realistic. So the first step is to assess which bridges can benefit from this and which bridges get the biggest bang for the buck for that. So I wouldn't say it's part of the workflow, but it's not completely engulfing every bridge.
Yeah, for us, it's definitely, we haven't even gotten into 3D modeling on the maintenance side yet. Construction people are playing with that. But right now, for bridge inspection, we are really using it as an extension of a digital camera for pictures and videos of places the bridges we can't find or we can't easily get to, or we would need a rope or a snooper truck. And so I'm just curious to know what the qualifying factor are to go beyond in other departments and companies' judgment.
Yeah, well, step one is many of our inspectors now, we're trying to carry drones with us at all times. A 2+ essentially in your backpack is the best tool to have on a bridge inspection site. Because again, getting to not have to put a snooper on, to mitigating how much a snooper needs to be used, that's the ultimate tool. But then going back to the 3D modeling question, it's more about, one, you don't want to model a bridge that just is in perfect condition, a brand new bridge. It looks beautiful and everyone loves to see it, especially at one of these conferences. But what a benefit are you getting as an asset manager? Not much. So one is to find out, the age of what types of defects the bridge has, the size, and what types of hurdles do we get by inspecting that bridge. So I say there's a lot of factors, and then it's trying to pick and choose between those.
Perfect. Any other questions? Oh, we have one in the back there.
Hi, Eric Martin from Southern California, Edison. The question is, how are you interacting with your leadership when you bring these new ways of looking at your assets? And have you made any determinations that weren't needing to be backed by human eyes with this information?
For me or for
anyone in that question, I guess.
Start at the beginning of the line.
Can you repeat the last part of that question, please?
Yeah, I'm just curious, as the drones get more sophisticated with the fidelity and you can see so much with it, how is it being received by leadership as a viable source to check the box of we did our job without sending a human out, I guess is what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because We are not rolled out in a full-time aerial inspection program yet. We still do majority of our inspections by foot patrol and such, and helicopter. But, you know, I do know the fact of when we done a little proof of concepts and we pushed that back up, you know, they're just amazed at what they can see. But it also brings up its own set of challenges because we can quickly overwhelm our resources from our regions, our operating regions. And also then now we're really on a clock to get those repairs made. And then so that is a dollar amount, right? So, I mean, it's just generally very positive because in the end, we're trying to prevent ignitions from happening. But it has its own set of challenges and we're kind of working our way through that right now. Nothing's, you know, we're not nearly as far along as you folks in California.
Yeah, I was just curious about, for you as well, the 3D mapping portion of it, like, it's pretty impressive. Like seeing defects basically, you know, I'm just curious, like, how do you feel incorporating that into your check the list as inspected? Yeah, so it's kind of twofold, I would say. So on the 3D mapping side, when you're able to produce a model like this, a lot of times in a bridge inspection report, you're seeing the defect. You're seeing what's wrong with my bridge, what's wrong with my asset. And with a model like this, you can typically go back and find what was the cause of that defect. Where's my maintenance? Yes, I can go patch this spall, but what caused that spall to happen? So it's about following your trail of breadcrumbs, and I think that's where that box gets checked. The other one on the non-3D modeling side, the 2+, we've had clients that the logistics and the cost of just closing down the bridge to get a snooper on it, to get all the resources on that site are just impossible. To put that 2+ between steel girders and go look at welds, go look at details, and get within 3 feet of your asset, even closer. That was the biggest checkbox, is to find things that not even manual inspection was able to find in some cases, or manual inspection just couldn't be done.
Hi, Jamie from Deep Tech Solutions. Just wanted to know, I didn't see the tunnel, or maybe I missed it. What kind of challenges do you face when you're doing the tunnel inspection with props? Often in like tunnels, mines, lots of dust. Just not a place I've done a lot of inspections. Just maybe some takeaways from that kind of experience. I suppose you don't have many alternatives in that GPS denied environment.
Yeah, if you wanted to click the slide, I think it's the very next one. Yeah, exactly what you said. It's dust. It's the light. I think is the biggest factor, and the amount of resources you need just to make those inspections is quite substantial. A lot of times, this could be confined space with the longer tunnel. But I would say Night Sense is what we're kind of working with to help bring those resources back to just a 2-person team or just a drone pilot, and then putting the drone in harm's way, not necessarily our inspection staff. That's your point.
What were you doing before?
Again, just a regular inspection team, so manual inspection. Yep.
Any other questions?
This is a loaded question. Aaron Chamberlain, Caltrans. So on that subject of standards, I heard you mention, that 1 millimeter GSD. What are you seeing as far as a national framework for that? As far as how does that scale, right? So it works for you for Stantec. You guys can develop your own standards, right? But how are you seeing that scale towards the entire industry? It could be bridge, it could be energy, whatever. We don't have, we have ASPRS standards for, nadir mapping. We don't really have anything for any of these other case uses yet because the technology is relatively new.
I'll answer that.
I think that's something, as the industry develops, we're going to have to develop those standards. And coming from DOTs, transportation authorities, regulatory authorities, they're ultimately going to have to set the standard. But we do need to have that conversation because the technology is new. And everyone right now wants a digital twin or a virtual twin or a 3D model. But we haven't defined that really well because everyone has a different definition for it. So coming together at conferences like this, discussing it, understanding that we do need to have data acquisition standards, that just because the drone will go out with uncontrolled photogrammetry and create a beautiful model, should you? If you want to do this over a decade, we need to programmatically decide how we're going to do that and set the standards up front, not just create one great model and then walk away from it. So exactly what you said, we have to have state standards, federal standards for this, and we have to have that conversation.
Any other questions? All right, with that, I'd like to thank our panelists for coming up here today and taking some time out of their busy days, and appreciate you, the audience, for coming out here as well. So thank you very much.